right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Katie Greifeld taking you through to that closing bell with a global simulcast. We're joined now by Massar and Tim Stenovec in our New York studios. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television and radio, our partnership with YouTube here on what looks like, Carol, yet another record-setting day for U.S. equities.
Nice job, by the way, over at Double Line, you guys.
Thank you.
That was really interesting.
It was. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
I thought you did a good job,
and
too.
good job to all of us, except for Tim at Milken. I thought we also did a really good job.
Ouch.
He did a good job, too. He did a bunch of Bloomberg Big Takes.
I was holding
Yeah, I
on the
saw
fort.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys check it out, okay?
I've been liking the post on Instagram about your interview with the NASA administrator.
Yeah, Jared Isaacman, he believes in life out there.
Yeah. It's,
Beyond the intelligent life that he found so close to here.
I want to believe.
Well, I want to believe that today was, like Romaine said, another record day.
I want to believe that Monday's almost over.
I find it notable that we also, given the challenges that continue in the Strait of Hormuz, and oil prices rose yet again today by 3% for June and July futures for WTI and Brent, we still had stocks move higher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to finish well off of session highs, but yeah, you had the rise in oil. You also had the rise in yields. We had, I believe it was a 3-year auction that didn't go over too hot, but still record highs, a record high is a record high.
Yeah, a narrow rally, though, we should point out, with the majority of S&P stocks in the red on the day, but still getting a big lift on the day from names like NVIDIA, Tesla, as well as Qualcomm. The closing bells come here in New York with the S&P 500 camped out just above 7,400, going to close higher on the day by about 0.2%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up more than 90 points, or about 0.2%. The Nasdaq Composite adding about 0.1%, while the Nasdaq 100 up about 0.3%, and the Russell 2000 getting in on the action as well, higher by 9 points, or 0.3%.
All right, back to the S&P 500 we go. Most names actually lower in the index, Katie. About 288 losing ground on this Monday. You had 215 higher in the Monday session and none unchanged.
Yeah, and an interesting split when you take a look at the sector level as measured by the circle. You can see sort of a patchwork there of green and red. Energy on a percentage basis was your biggest gainer, higher by about 2.6%. Materials, industrials, tech also rising by 1% or more. In terms of what didn't work on this Monday, communication services down by about 2.3%. You also had consumer staples, that sector off by about 0.8%, Carol.
All right, so let me go to some of the gainers. Man, you really had some mega outperformance once again in those semiconductor names. In fact, you had the SOX, you had Intel, you had Micron, you had Qualcomm, all at record closes today. Just let's go through some of the numbers. 8.5% higher roughly on Qualcomm, 6.5% higher when it comes to Micron. You had Intel also higher, up about 3.6%. And if you look at the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, up about 2.6%. So you saw this group, again, extending the gains that we've seen already this year. That's after we saw record highs in a lot of the names on Friday. The latest surge boosted by continued investor enthusiasm over AI and infrastructure build-outs. Benzinga talking about Qualcomm, saying, or citing the CEO there, saying the smartphone era may be nearing its end as major AI companies quietly work on next-generation wearable devices powered by advanced AI agents. So you have that going on. As for Intel, you had Barron's reporting that the stock is up on a reported second huge chip customer, and that Intel's in talks with South Korean chip maker SK Hynix about providing chip packaging technology to integrate high-bandwidth memory and logic chips. That's according to that report or a report from ZDNet Korea. And then remember, it was just last week that Apple and Intel seemed to be reaching an agreement, an early chip-making agreement. That came out from the Wall Street Journal, but our own team earlier last week had given a heads up on that happening. Just so much going on when it comes to the semiconductor. And just real quickly, something a little bit different, ticker MNDY, Monday.com Limited, rallying nearly 23% intraday. Shares rising after the more than $3.8 billion market cap software company raised its full-year forecast for both revenue and adjusted operating profits. Stock, though, down about 50% year-to-date. Nearly 15% of the float is short. Stock is down more than 80% since November of 2021. So the longer story, not so great. You can just see that chart right there. But nonetheless, investors finding some interest in it on this Monday.
All right, well, on this Monday, I'm finding some interest in some stocks that moved lower. I want to start with one of the worst performing stocks in the S&P 500 on a percentage basis today. That would go to the Trade Desk, down 6.8%. It's an ad tech company, and it has just been getting absolutely beat up. It's right now trading at, about $21 a share. You go back to end of 2024, this was a $140 stock. So it's down just about 85% since then. Fell again today, this after the analyst over at HSBC cut his recommendation to reduce from hold this after earnings last week that disappointed a lot of investors. That was back on May 7th. Also, want to look at Tyson Foods on a day when we're expecting some moves out of Washington. The company fell by 1.9%. The Wall Street Journal reported the White House will temporarily cut beef import tariffs. The president said at a Monday news conference that he's working on getting beef prices down. Smithfield Foods also fell today. Also, finally, Sally Beauty Holdings. We just spoke to Denise Polanis, the CEO of the company. They reported earnings earlier today. Shares fell today, actually had its worst day intraday going back to 2023. Sally Beauty ended up falling on the day, in addition to just an outlook that didn't make that, really investors were a little worried about. They had a good earlier quarter, but investors are worried about what the company said when it came to the outlook. The company also said they're watching lower income consumers, and there's more frugality when it comes to those consumers.
All right, let's get a quick check here on yields. This seesaw that we've been seeing in recent sessions where you're up one day, down the next. We're up here on the day pretty significantly here, up about 5 basis points, but at 4.4 on your benchmark 10-year yield. You see the somewhat stasis that we've been in here relative to the last couple of weeks here. That's going to be sort of a big challenge going forward, not so much for what bond investors are looking for, but equity investors, of course, trying to price out the next direction and how that might actually feed into their projections for stocks going forward.
Meanwhile, we do have some earnings crossing the wire. Hims and Hers reporting, and the big headline here is that they're cutting their full-year adjusted EBITDA forecast when it comes to what they see. They now see full-year adjusted EBITDA between $275 million to $350 million. The previous range that the company had given was between $300 to $375 million. You can see that shares are popping right now, though, higher by about 8% or so. I will also point out when it comes to the first quarter EPS, that missed estimates as well. They also downgraded where they see second quarter adjusted EBITDA there. So we're going to read through this and get you more details, but you can see that shares higher. After hours, we know that it's been a really rocky year for Hims and Hers Health, especially when you think about the back and forth and now partnership with Novo Nordisk.
Absolutely. And I want to take a look at another stock here. Do you remember the New York Times shares? You go back to like late 90s, early 2000s, and it was this idea that shares were just on this steady decline. And then something changed big time over the last few years. And a lot of that had to do with its big push into games.
Yes.
Crossword puzzles, and of course Wordle, which of course became a sensation there, on the paper, on your app, or whatever you want to call it, is now going to be an actual game show on TV.
I love it.
Can you believe this?
I love this too. I got to tell you, I play it like every day. My husband sends me it in the morning. He plays it as soon. I don't know what your word is. I've actually been playing it on the train, and somebody looks over my shoulder and is like, "You got to get a better first word." I'm like, I like my first word.
What's your first word?
Adieu.
Yeah.
Adieu. A-D-I-E-U.
Oh, that's a lot of letters.
Does that count if it's like...
No, you'd be amazed at what kind of counts.
I've never quite figured out how to play this game. Remember, this was started by just some random dude, and then
he sold it. And he sold it to the New York Times after a few months.
He did it for his girlfriend.
He sold it to the New York Times after a few months, after it sort of went viral for the low 7-digit figure.
Low 7 digits. Oof.
So,
ouch.
Yeah, it reminds me of, kind of when Instagram was sold to Facebook for $1 billion, it seemed like a lot of money. And Facebook has turned that business into such a huge business. The New York Times has turned Wordle into a huge business.
And just games over. Anyone who has a New York Times app, it's just like they're proliferating. It's like, the little gremlin things, you feed it after midnight and all of a sudden you wake up and there's 20 new games.
Carol's gaming right now.
Yeah.
Look.
I go through Wordle, I do Connections, I do the Mini.
I like Connections.
Right?
I do the Mini. They have the real crossword puzzle, for smart people. They have the mini. Now they have, what do they call it? The MIDI? The middle one now?
Yes, they have the MIDI.
It's out of control.
Exactly.
When does it stop?
I don't love Pips though.
No, Pips.
No.
Come on.
I have to say,
whoever invented Pips, get out of here.
It's not just the New York Times. You think about LinkedIn also introducing puzzle games on their website and their app. I actually do have the LinkedIn app.
Wow.
Bloomberg has the pointed quiz online, which is very interesting.
Taking the world by storm.
Yeah, Alpha Dots as well.
So am I
What about
getting
the
this?
ETF quiz?
Am I getting this right that the guys
We do
aren't
have
playing the
one.
games Katie and you and I are?
No, that's not true.
I feel like Romaine has games that he plays, but perhaps they're different than the games that we play.
They're cerebral.
Yeah.
No comment.
Sounds like you got that one right.
Yeah.
Tim, I don't know what
Walked right into
you're
that
cooking
one.
on, but